Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started on this. It's great to have you along to the next in the Tide Masterclass webinar series, how to keep your business afloat for the rest of 2020. Really great to see some names I recognise from previous webinars joining us, which is lovely. And just there are also a lot of people who I don't recognise or might not be Tide members, so I just wanted to give you a quick intro from myself and from Tide. So my name is Huerta. I'm the event manager here at Tide. We are a business current account designed to save SMEs and freelancers time and money with their business banking. We have over 200,000 customers, and we're the fastest growing business current account in the UK. It's great for startups and small businesses, just as I mentioned, and freelancers, because there's no monthly fees, no minimum deposit, and no credit checks when you join Tide. So this means you can even try us out alongside your current business bank account to do a direct comparison on cost, ease of use, the time and money that we'll save. Usually takes about 5 or 10 minutes to get a sort code and account number. When I did it when I joined Tide, I timed it, and it was 4 minutes and 37 seconds from start to finish to get my account number and sort code, and we didn't get any sort of priority as a Tide employee, so that was a great test for us to do. And the app itself is packed full of really great time-saving features. You can have auto categorization on your spending, so you can see exactly where your money's gone. And when it went there. We've recently introduced a brand new invoicing feature after we listened to our members as this is something they wanted. It's again totally free as part of the app, and you have professional invoice templates which you can include your own logo on, which means you can create invoices really quickly and easily. The editable email to go along with that invoice as well. You don't have to share a single bank card for the account, so if you have a co-director, senior leadership, members of staff and other employees who want to be able to make company expenses, you can have up to 30 cards on the one account as well, so you can track all those spendings from those individual cards. And within the account itself, you can also break that down into 4 sub accounts. So you could have a sub account for your taxes, for your marketing, your event spend, all those kind of things. So it's really easy to keep on top of your spending and see where your money's going, and just a really simple way to make your business banking a lot easier. I'll talk to you a bit later on about how you can become a Tide member with some emails and stuff we'll send you later on. And I just wanted to give you guys a quick tour of Zoom for those of you who haven't used it before. I don't know whether you're either on a phone or a tablet or a laptop. So down the bottom there's a chat and a Q&A section. If you want to send some questions in for the panel, please do in the Q&A button, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. Any chat you want to do, any positive comments you want to make, any words of encouragement for the panel, that would be great. Put those in the chat and we'll try and get to those as well. And so I'll now move on to the panel themselves. So go to the next slide, please. The panel themselves, here we have Alex, Mathew and Mark, and we'll ask them to do a quick intro, starting with Alex, please. Morning, Alex.
Hi, morning, Kuhn. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to the Tide webinar. I'm Alex Falcon, Huerta. I'm the founder of Soaring Falcon Accountancy. I set my business up in 2015 to be fully cloud digital and paperless, and so classified as one of the pace setters in the UK and leading innovation. I'm also ACCA International Assembly member and an advocate of my accountancy body, ACCA. Obviously a Tide partner as well. So, hi.
Great, thanks, Alex. Mathew, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Mathew Jaffa. I'm the Senior External Affairs Manager for the Federation of Small Businesses in London. We are the leading small business representative organisation. We have around about 160,000 members and around 8,000 in London, and we provide a kind of suite of benefits. My role is very much on the kind of lobbying, public affairs, the media, policy and communications work for the FSB across the London region.
Great, thank you, Mathew. And last but by no means least, Mark, good morning.
Morning, everybody. My name is Mark O'Mahony. I'm with Corporate Affairs with Be the Business. We're a government-supported, industry-led charity that's established to help small businesses improve their productivity and performance. So we design and develop programs to help small businesses and roll them out throughout the country for free. Great,
thanks, Mark. That's lovely. So it's a really strong panel, and we're going to have hopefully a great discussion on the subject this morning. And we just want to start with a quick poll, if that's okay with everybody. We have another poll later in the webinar as well, so please keep an eye out for that. We just wanted to get an idea of who we're talking to. So if you could, and the size of businesses you work for. So if you could all please take a couple of seconds just to answer that poll that's in front of you now. And we'll see the percentages going up and up, and we'll try and get to it's close to 100% response as possible. No, 84%, good. Not sure if we had 100% on any yet, but this could be the first. Come on. No, sticking at 89%. Oh, 94. Final offers. Final offers, come on. Okay, we'll stick at 94%. So I will share those results now. And as you can see, huge, the majority is obviously one to five employees, quickly followed by self-employed. So that gives the panel a nice idea of who we're speaking to. So thank you very much for taking part in that poll. So moving on to the main part of the presentation, I'm going to start with Alex. And Alex, when we were discussing, this presentation, this webinar, we decided you could talk around where businesses should start, what they need to focus on, and how they stay in control, and also how they need to keep their finance in order. Those are 2 or 3 quite important points.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess when the 23rd hit of March and everybody was in panic mode, I think one of the main things that I had to do again was to keep focused and to stay in control and just managing the clients as best as possible, with everybody phoning me up and just wondering like what they need to do, how they need to achieve it, and just basically planning forward. And so just some of the really basic things that I was advising the clients was to just be really focused on finances, obviously, and I'll move on to that part in the next on my next slide. But just a couple of things that we discussed were things like, speaking to your customers, speaking to your clients, and to your suppliers, and keeping an open communication with them. And just always like to feel relaxed and be in control of those conversations. And I know a lot of people did panic when it happened. And going forward, if we are to have like a second wave of the pandemic, it's just to always know that you've got things written down, to keep a checklist of everything that you need to actually go through to plan, critical areas. So if for finances isn't like your strongest point, that's then an area that you'd need to place your focus on. And a lot of people, even when they run a business, they shy away from finances. They don't want to know what's going on behind the scenes, but actually that's one of the main areas. I think somebody talked to me about juggling balls, and they classed finances as the knife. You don't want to drop the finances part of all the balls that you have to juggle. Looking at all the the people on the webinar, we've got one. I'm in the same boat of like 1 to 5 employees, so I know how tough it is to manage like your social media, to manage like your marketing, your sales, your cash flow, to manage like people, and then to actually think about all your personal circumstances as well. And so one of the most important things is to understand like the taxes that you have to pay, to know how much money you have personally and financially in the business to be able to save going forward, so that you've got that in the back of your mind of, okay, you've got enough savings, and what do you need to then do going forward to make sure that you can manage that. And one of the key things is just to always plan as much in advance as possible, because where you've planned as much as possible, you're then going to be in much more control of what's happening. So things like doing things like these webinars and just finding out exactly what everybody else is doing, to stay afloat, to communicate those with the customers and the suppliers, which I mentioned earlier, to also join communities and people around you. So I myself have, I'm a member of like Rebel Accountants. So I've got about 15 to 20 accountants I can speak to every single day if I needed to. And so it's really important for the small businesses to try and join communities. And if there isn't one available, to then maybe design one yourself and get businesses and small local businesses together, because essentially everybody's going through those same things, everybody's going through those same issues, discussing and talking about it, and actually how to get back up and running. And lots of people are supporting local businesses now. So, you know, they're going to choose to go to a local community because they want to, you know, boost the economy. I know in my local town, you know, there's a massive amount of focus being placed, you know, in Bedford and how locals is, and getting them back up and running and helping them with their social media. And that's the sort of thing that you probably need to speak to your local council about as well, because there's probably things that they're doing that you potentially don't know about, but you could be involved in if you get in touch with them. And it's just leading, you know, yourself and your team through the pandemic, but also just, again, always keeping focused about the goal. What is it that you want to achieve? What are the next steps? How are you going to push your business forward? And just considering all like the social media side of it. So again, it's just really focusing on things, but just keeping a checklist together, and just going through that checklist so that you can maintain what is going on over the next few months. So if we move on to the next slide, just going to talk a little bit about obviously like my speciality in terms of keeping your finances in order. So people are going to be keeping their records in different types of methods, in terms of they're going to have spreadsheets, or they're going to have, I don't know whether people still keep books or not, like manual books, but also one of the most important things that I would always recommend is looking at online platforms. So as a practice, I use Xero. Obviously there's QuickBooks, there's Sage Online, there's multiple different products that you can essentially move your business onto. But one of the things that cloud technology does, and cloud accounting, is it allows you to have transparent data. Having that transparent data available to you so that you can literally open up a browser, click onto your financials, have a look at what your bottom line is on a daily basis, is probably one of the most crucial things that you could be doing at this time. So again, people shy away from it because they don't want to look at it. People shy away from finances because they know they're going through difficult times. However, making sure that you make that part of your daily routine and checking your finances on a regular basis is probably going to take that pressure away, because it's going to allow you to make those decisions going forward, to see, okay, I haven't got this money in the bank. What decisions do I need to make going forward? Do I need to look at, you know, funding or anything around, you know, do I need to look at loans or anything like that? So it's just keeping it, just actually like being honest with yourself. It's like, what is the bottom line? So, you know, you're looking at all of your income coming in, or essentially some of you haven't had an income coming in, but then looking at your costs. The costs, I believe, has been one of the most trickiest areas, because some people have costs that they can't essentially stop. Others have costs that you can potentially reduce. Again, it's speaking to those suppliers to see what options you have got available to you, whether you can put things on payment plans, whether you can put them on direct debits, whether you can defer payments. The government have obviously incentivized some areas where you had your grants, and that will help towards the costs. And you've got the furloughs, which will then go right the way through until October. And then you've got the HMRC schemes where they're implementing, you know, the bonus scheme to keep people employed. So always keep on top of what the HMRC releases are, and just learn what relates to you as a small business, because having those schemes in place, you don't really want to miss any deadlines that are available to you, or any grants. I know from the local council that so many people for their £10 grant. So please go apply for it, go to the website, the local council, and just make sure that you get that in place. Learning about the profit and loss, so the income less all your expenses. Sorry if that sounds a little bit basic, but people do still come to me to say, what is a profit and loss? It's your income less your expenses. And you, again, just keeping track of that. And where I've got these apps on here, I've got like Xero and Receipt Bank and Tide and Fluidly. I'm going to talk a little bit about those. That's just having data available to you real time, so that you don't need to really panic about getting all your admin done. Everybody leaves the finances to the last minute. And then when you need to make a quick, fast decision, it's not ready. Majority of my clients, they had all their stuff ready because everything is online. And then I spoke to people who are non-clients who said, I don't have my information up to date. How do I get it up to date? How do I get all the data together? Because again, learning about your finances, learning about budgets, learning about cash flow, and even about like your taxes, these are some of the key areas that if you know those ongoing, when it comes to things like a pandemic, which is unusual, or even it comes to situations that are outside of your control, you're in a position to make those decisions as quickly as possible and to actually stay in control, which was, again, reverting back to my first slide, is like keeping focus, keeping in control. If you know what your bottom line is, you're more than likely to then take advantage of anything that's available around you, to sign up to grants, to take on loans, to take on, the alternative funding. So one of the things I've got on there is Capitalise. Again, I partner with those. They have alternative funding. So if you know what your budgets are, if you know what your cash flow position is, and if you know I would say a lot of the clients I've worked for where we've done cash flow trends between 9 and 12 months is where the cash situation is potentially going to be more trickier. All the taxes are going to be deferred, not deferred, where you've deferred your tax payments, those essentially are going to be due around January, March time. And so there's potentially going to be like a really tight cash flow situation at that particular time. So January to March is where the biting point and the tricky point is going to be. So have you got enough cash in your bank? Have you got enough money in your account to be able to fund those tax payments that are going to fall due at that particular time? Because we don't know at the moment whether HMRC are going to bring in any more payment plans, or whether or not they're going to say, right, we're going to extend those payments. They're changing, their requirements and the offerings to support small businesses on a day-to-day basis. So at the moment, they're saying it's all going to be due, by the 31st of January and all the VAT. But again, by the time it comes to October, and if there's a second wave of COVID, then again, they might be extending it, but plan to pay for January/March next year. Just coming on to a product called Receipt Bank. So again, things like Receipt Bank really help because you can take photos of your receipts and send that data straight into your accounting software. So then you're not going to miss the expenses going into your accounting software. So many people will spend money out of their own pocket and not put it through the business. And then what they don't realize is they're missing those receipts, and those fundamental tiny little things that build up over that time is essentially going to reduce your tax bill. Some of the most recent accounting, again, new clients that have signed up, those amounts came to, £10,000, where they've said, oh, I'm just going to pay for this outside of the business and don't capture it. Always capture all of your business receipts. Always capture and make sure that you're accounting for them in your spreadsheet, or hopefully in a cloud software, so that you can then keep your tax bills as low as possible, because you don't really want to be paying taxes or high taxes when essentially you didn't need to. So again, it's just keeping on top of those. So there is quite a bit around around all the finances, but it's also just making sure that you have that relevant data available to you. A product I have on here is Fluidly. Fluidly is basically a tool that links onto Xero, and it future predicts your cash flow, and it allows you to put different scenarios in. So if you can imagine, one of my typical clients will have transparent data. They'll have Xero, they'll have Receipt Bank, so they don't have to worry about all the admin. Capitalise connects into it, so it allows us to work out what funding they need in the future, and Fluidly then gives us that option of knowing what their cash position is between 12 months and 24 months. We're always ahead. And pretty much when I speak to them, they feel like they are in control. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have loads of cash like at the end of it, but they just know where they are to make those decisions. And I think that's really where that control element comes in. Have your finances in order so that you feel that you're in control of making your decisions going forward. That's it for me. So
yeah, that's great, Alex. Thank you so much. Some really, really important things to think about. I think going back to something you said about how people think of juggling the business balls in the air, and they tend to think of the finances as the knife. If that's something that people need to get away from, just think of it as a nice something rather than a knife. And then it's just one of those things which you worry about, but once you get it in order, like you say, it becomes easy to manage. And like you say, we're using things like Xero and QuickBooks and things that really help. And also they link into the Tide platform as well, which obviously is really great for our customers too. And so moving on to, thank you for that, Alex. That was really great. Remember to get your questions in. If you have any for Alex, please do get those into the Q&A section at the bottom. So moving on to Mathew. During our initial discussions on this webinar as well, we talked about the importance of staying visible and competitive. And it'd be great to hear your views and what you can suggest for small businesses.
Thanks, Kieran. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting to see that the survey poll data that the majority on this call are less than 5 or 6 employees. That is traditionally our demographic of members are the self-employed, okay, or less than 10 staff who are FSB members.
Right.
I mean, what I wanted to just touch upon was a few key themes around remaining visible and competitive. And at this time, whilst it's very uncertain, many of your competitors have been trying to find ways to stay current, ahead of the game, looking at their social media output, looking at their ways to innovate and adapt into new sectors. So for us, what we're saying to businesses and members is that trying to size out what your competitors are doing, trying to stay ahead of them and trying to find ways to adapt, be agile at this time is critical. So getting data from your clients, your customers, what their needs are, is very important at this time. I put focusing on advertising at this time as well. And this is not for everyone, but it's worth knowing that advertising at this time is going to be at the lowest rate you could possibly get it. So it could be a good way. It might not work for you, but it's interesting or could be wise to go and size out what advertising rates are, whether or not it's a good time to promote your services because the rates are so low. As I say, look at local advertising space, spaces in local papers, on local radio, just ways like this that it might be some good offers that are available. It might not be for everyone, but again, we're aware that it could be a good time to do that. Focusing on positive PR. A lot of businesses have been absolutely, and small businesses have been absolutely incredible for their local economies and local communities. Providing services to food banks, providing PPE at short notice, adapting their business to provide certain equipment to certain sectors. All these things that are fantastic from a PR perspective, and it's been done, from small businesses who've done it altruistically. But why not just inform people about that? So don't be afraid to shout about the PR or the work that you've done or businesses have done at this time. It's important as well, talking to your representatives. A lot of businesses, when we're speaking to local MPs, we've got an MP meet up today with a local London MP, an opportunity for us as small businesses to go and speak to them, to tell them our plight, but also to speak to local government leaders or to the cabinet member in your local authority. Speak to them, email them, tell them what you're doing, tell them, keep them aware, because it might be something that gives a procurement opportunity through the local authority, or it could be something they can lobby on your behalf. But don't be afraid to go and speak to these officials at this time. And as Alex mentioned in her comments as well, there are plenty of grants available. A lot of local authorities have been handing out discretionary grants to businesses who've got physical space, who have been adversely affected by the coronavirus crisis, but also government grants in retail, hospitality and leisure as well. If you are entitled to...
Sorry, just to go back on, just to step back on onto the local government level MP. For me, that sounds as though it's something that'd be really useful, but how would you start on getting in touch with them? It's often seen as maybe an impenetrable fortress to get to your local MP, and you can write letters or write emails, but I think the main view is they don't respond. Or what would be the sort of start?
Well, your local MP, if you're in the constituent, should do. It should be. They've got lots of researchers there, so okay. It wouldn't be a bad thing. Trying to see on LinkedIn, for for instance, who works as a local researcher in the team and try and work out the generic email. But more often than not, all your local authority leaders or your cabinet members, your councillors have email addresses.
Yeah.
And so that's the first rung of the ladder. Get in touch with them and don't be afraid to, because that's what they're there to do, and to support you and help on your behalf if they can. So
okay, sorry to interrupt. That was just a question I had.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So yeah, as I say, don't miss out on any grants you've got coming to you. So please look on your local authority websites if they're available, and they're available to you, because they haven't given out all their money yet. And I've mentioned at the end there, keep talking to anyone. And that's, a lot of that, FSP care is provided to our members from a kind of, if anyone should, fall, unfortunately ill from a physical or mental health side as well. But it's important, a lot of self-employed people, and there are a lot of self-employed on this call as well, feeling isolated at this time. And it's very important that we keep talking, whether it be to our customers, to our clients, to our members of our family, even our accountants, anyone, in terms of kind of the predicament you're in. Don't stay isolated. Don't think you're alone, because these ideas can come from these conversations. It's important to keep talking at this time. Next slide. And in terms of the kind of, I put that up, a word that's been noted to me over the last few weeks, kind of the humble brag, making a kind of a self-deprecating statement without the intention of drawing it to yourself for something which is someone's proud of. A lot of small businesses, I find, a lot of self-employed, they do fantastic things, but they don't shout about it. And it's not as though it's being showy or anything like that, but if you've done something, and you're proud of it, then bloody hell, make people aware of what you're doing and shout about it, because if you're not going to, no one's going to. And that's the point at this time. You've got to stay ahead. You're going to have big corporates who are going to be doing lots of PR, but there are lots of great, interesting stories that local, BBC London, ITV London, and LBC, all these radio stations, they want to publicise, some good and great news stories at this time. So highlight your where you've been good on your websites. Highlight your PR coverage where you've had a great something on social media, a great campaign that's worked out. Don't be afraid to shout about it. So showcase what you've done on social media and how it's benefited the local economy. Also, there's a kind of a thing on Twitter called #journorequest. That's a trend that exists. Go onto that trend, see what journalists are looking for case studies in certain areas. It might be that you can provide that opportunity, and all of a sudden you've got a great PR opportunity free of charge to go and speak to a journalist, and who knows, something can come of it. Giving yourself all those networking opportunities, whether it be physical networking is not available at the moment, but keep going to whether it be an FSB networking event or Tide networking or Chambers of Commerce, wherever it be, BNI, whatever works for you. Keep doing that. Keep networking at this time, because that's where opportunities lie, and it's important this time, as I mentioned in the last slide, not to feel isolated, and create strong press releases. A lot of companies won't do this. They don't maybe have the PR behind them, or they don't have the time to do so. But writing or learning a skill of how to write a good press release, very short, succinct, what the message you want to get across. Try and look, as I say, putting it on social media, or rooting out on who the kind of the London correspondent is at the ITV London help desk, or the planning desks at these news outlets, and send them your press releases. Again, good news stories, gets your coverage out, and gets you an opportunity to get some free PR at this time. So yeah, just a few tips there.
Awesome, thanks, Matthew. The #journorequest is something I didn't know about at all. I think that's a great tool to be able to have. In terms of creating a stronger press release, Matthew, sorry, just a quick question. Is there somewhere you could suggest they go? Is there something on the FSB website where they could sort of have hints and tips on how to do that, or where would you say?
I mean, there's lots of different media companies providing. You could Google even, how to. I mean, there's so many.
As with everything in this.
Great press releases are very, very standardised, very, very step format. A couple of paragraphs about the key points you want to get across. A quote from yourself as the business leader, and then any notes at the bottom to an editor that you want to send, and your media contact at the bottom. So it's, we're talking a few paragraphs, but as long as it gets your message across, what the quote you want to say in your name, they're very standardized and they're very easy to pick up online.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was really, really insightful and interesting. So yeah, we're going to move on to Mark now. And I think, Mark, we discussed the importance for a business to be able to recover in this time. I know you've got some really interesting points to make on this.
Yeah, I hope so. And thankfully, some of it chimes with what Alex and Mathew have said. So that's always reassuring.
Good.
But,
good. That's why we got you.
So because we conduct quite a lot of research amongst small businesses and micro businesses, and this is to sort of inform the programs that we develop or the services we provide to them. And obviously over the past few months, things have been hugely challenging. So we've been conducting research on a rolling basis. So we've conducted quite a lot amongst over the past few weeks and months. And our most recent research sort of found some pretty interesting findings. So what I'd like to do is take you through 3 of the most interesting findings and then maybe leave you with a takeaway on each one that you can go away and see if it's relevant to your business. First was that we surveyed about 1,500 SMEs and micros. We conducted interviews, we did focus groups, everything you can think of. And one sort of fact emerged, and that was that small business leaders basically can be divided into 3 camps in terms of how they're planning their survival and their recovery. And these 3 camps we referred to as the innovators, they're about 31%, the stickers, they're at 33%, and the undecided, they're around 36%. So it's a pretty neat division. So we found this fascinating. We looked into what does this mean? And essentially the first cohort, the innovators, they were companies that had made pretty significant changes to their business. They developed a new product or implemented a new service, something pretty substantial. Second group, the stickers, they were sort of steady as you go, business as usual, just keep on going in the same course I was before the crisis, and we expect things will pan out okay in the end. And third cohort, the undecided, they were thinking about making big changes, but they just weren't sure yet. They were a little bit on the fence. And I think it would be interesting if we could poll those tuning in, see if they can recognize themselves in any of these 3 cohorts. Would they consider themselves to be an innovator over the past 3 months, a sticker, or indeed one of the undecided? And it's important to say none of these is better than the other. It's just an approach to how you're thinking about the recovery.
So that's poll is launched now. If you guys could take a second to read through and select which one best describes where you're at the moment in your business.
Great.
Interesting.
And interestingly, I know that a lot of the audience today is micro enterprises, and
yeah,
they did cluster around one particular cohort. So I'll reveal the secret.
Does your job rest on the results of this poll, Mark? Whether it's worthwhile or not?
Yeah, hopefully this will.
Is that what you're not telling us? You're going to make it up? Yeah. Okay, we're 80%. I'll end the poll there and share the results. Interesting.
Pretty even split amongst the first 2. Yeah. Interestingly, the second cohort, the stickers, the micro businesses predominantly found themselves in this camp. And this is important because the next few weeks and months will really sort of determine what the next stage of your business is, and your approach to it and the decisions you take will be sort of crucial. Always crucial for a small business, but particularly so in the next few months. The second, I think, interesting, I suppose, revelation almost from the survey was that there's been almost what we call 3 years of innovation in the last 3 months. So small businesses typically they have enough to do working on the day job. We usually associate innovation with sort of men in white coats in labs or really high-tech companies. But in the last 3 months, there's been a fundamental change amongst small businesses. And this really is, necessity is the mother of invention, because this was basically forced innovation. It wasn't necessarily by choice. It was because they had to adapt, they had to evolve, they were put under pressure to change their business model, change the way they engage with customers. Big changes. And again, these are fundamental changes too. So new products, new international export markets, around 9%, 14% considering it, new processes. So this is all to say that there's been a huge shift in the way small businesses are approaching their business models and basically doing business. And what would be interesting to see is if any of this reverts. Our sort of sense is that a lot of this will be sticky. It will change even after any kind of return to normality. a lot of these new processes and a new attitude towards innovation among small business leaders will stay. They'll be more comfortable with change. They've been sort of forced to make some changes they've probably been thinking about for a number of years, but never had the time or the resources. And one of the sort of interesting points on this is this innovation was done in very short order. You know, sometimes these transformational processes or new product or a new service, you know, that could be a 2-year strategy or something like that. This was done in a matter of weeks or months. And it was done at a time when, you know, a percentage of the staff were on furlough, cash flow was uncertain, consumer demand was down. So really, really revealing that small businesses can be quite resilient and adaptable. If you can just move on to the next slide, please. Just the one preceding that, I think. Perfect. The third point was around technology. And this was, I mean, essentially businesses have adopted technology at a rate faster than ever before, and they're intending on adopting more technology. So this is a transformational for UK SMEs. And you might say, well, obviously we're all on Zoom now. This isn't, you know, anything sort of or anything surprising. But if you look through some of the list of the most popular adoptions of technology, it's, you know, it's far beyond Zoom. There's virtual collaboration tools, there's data analysis, e-commerce, cloud-based back office. So this is sort of far beyond Zoom and remote meetings. And why this is probably more important or more relevant for UK businesses is that UK SMEs typically lag European or other OECD businesses in their use of technology. Even though we're considered quite a high-tech economy, the use of kind of fundamental tech amongst UK SMEs is actually pretty low. And this isn't necessarily sort of artificial intelligence or blockchain. This is ERP, CRM, financial accounting packages, things like that. And again, this is something that we think is going to shift fundamentally as well. Small business owners have sort of been pressed to make some of these digital or tech changes, and these will probably stay with them. And they may feel comfortable now they've adopted some technology, perhaps in consumer engagement, and that might switch to other types of technology that they'll be willing to take on and engage with. And the point to note again is that this is technology for resilience. This isn't necessarily, you know, a value add for an additional consumer engagement or an additional sort of service to be provided. This is to build in the ability to sort of survive through the kind of the external pressures of the lockdown, the pandemic, meeting new consumer expectations. This isn't technology for tech's sake. This is to ensure the survival and resilience of the business. So my kind of 3 takeaways that I'd leave you with on those 3 points. And it is important to say, I think, that this is based on interactions with small business owners. This isn't sort of my opinion, because I know it's difficult enough to run a small business without someone advising you on it. But on the first point, on the 3 segments, innovators, stickers, or the undecided, you know, neither is, or none of them is sort of any better or worse. But if you're in the undecided camp, you know, now is the time to start thinking about getting a plan, because in some ways we're sort of at a bit of a halftime period. There's been a serious lockdown. There could potentially be a second wave. There's Brexit looming around the corner. Take a bit of time to work on your business rather than in your business. You can be so swamped with the day-to-day, but after this meeting, book in an hour, find some methodology to just step back and think, what do I need to do to get a plan for the next 3 weeks or 3 months? Talk to your staff, talk to other people, but have some idea over the medium or longer term. It's too easy to get sort of bogged down in just keeping business above water. You can sometimes forget about the bigger picture. My second sort of takeaway to think about would be around innovation. Again, in the day-to-day, you can be buried in the books, you can be buried in keeping customers happy, chasing invoices. You don't necessarily have to start from a blank page if you want to innovate. Other companies have done it, your peers have done it. You know, talk to them. As Mathew and Alex were saying, talk to a network, talk to the FSB, join your local chamber of commerce, tide groups, anything, whatever works for you. Could be a few drinks, you know, at a weekend with other business owners. But they're very often quite happy to interact with each other, give advice. We run sort of Facebook community groups and online community groups. And by and large, everyone is willing to share their experience, give some tips. You know, did this work well for you? What would you do differently? And that kind of advice is priceless, because the best people SMEs can learn from are their peers, other SMEs. my final takeaway to think about is around technology. And again, this isn't sort of blockchain. Over 500,000 businesses have changed their operating models over the past few weeks and months. You know, perhaps you could be one. I know this is probably a pretty tech savvy audience because I guess a lot of them are using accountancy packages and software packages, so you have some familiarity with it. But some of the benefits of assessing what a CRM might do for you, what the collaboration tools would do, take a look at that. You know, do a bit of try before you buy. Again, talk to peers. But technology could really give you the edge in terms of how you might survive or thrive in the coming sort of challenges. So that would be my 3 takeaways.
Great. That's really, really interesting, Mark. Thank you for that. And some really interesting facts and figures for our attendees to look at too. I think we'll move on to the next slide, which is just some of the hints and tips and some actionable knowledge from the panel. I think the first 2 there are from yourself, Alex. If you wanted to just maybe talk on those, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, cool. Also, I might just add one cheeky one on there.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Mark was saying, he was saying, you know, about the technology and like wanting to like implement that side. So, you know, even though I'm an accountancy firm and we do like accounting and accounting packages, actually we partner with like multiple different technology companies and add-ons, and there's like hundreds available out there, and so we actually move businesses online fully, not just accounting.
Okay.
And so we just do like CRMs and literally like everything around a business. There's always a product available to move it online, and we work with all of our clients to bring them all online. So it's quite interesting that Mark was saying that, because actually my business actually was, you know, I use over 50 different products, and people might freak out about that, but actually it's to automate and to reduce admin, so I don't actually need to really hire. So, but again, that I mean, one of my tips really was around that flexibility, be open-minded and trusting, because we've got all these changes, you know, is having that agility behind and leading the team, and knowing that people are going to be working from home, people are going to be, you know, wanting those changes to remain, and allowing that to happen, because ultimately, you know, if that is like a new way forward and people prefer that, then some business owners might still struggle with that trust element, and it's just letting go and just seeing how it runs with them being able to work from home if they are able to. I was one of those people that, you know, I could be in another country and I can work, you know, on a beach somewhere, and I was fortunate to be in that position, and I appreciate not everybody was able to operate that way, but now they're in a position where they were kind of forced to, so be flexible around those situations. And the other tip that I thought was relevant was like, give yourself a break. You know, we're all really inundated with a lot of stuff. I know I have been over the last 10, 15 weeks, but it's, you know, you do need to give yourself a break and to step out of it every now and then and just clear your mind and reflect on things, because ultimately, you know, you still need to make sure that you've got your health to be able to deliver and keep running your business and leading your team through the next few months and the next year.
Great. Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Mathew, I think the next couple or next 3 were from you. We've got you on mute. There you go.
Sorry. Yeah, always forget to do that. Yeah. So if you can, I said it might be a bit policy speak, but if you can be a thought leader, is that notion of, you know, you're the expert in your particular field. So let people know your opinions, what your views are, whether it be on a news story or whether it be on something in your sector that you want to talk about. Don't be afraid to you know, write a blog on something, or put up a small 2-minute video on something that you've got something to say on something, and use your channels to do so, and it gets your point across. When you market yourself using the right channel, the right time, hitting your right audience, you know, a lot of people say, what social media channel should I use to promote my business? And, you know, an expert might say, you know what, it's got to be what works for you, how you can hit your demographic best. I mean, you know, if you're an accountant, you know, Alex might get the value, and presumably, you know, being on LinkedIn might be of good value. But say if you're a painter and decorator, maybe Facebook works better for you than it does LinkedIn, and it has to be, you know, using those channels, those marketing opportunities, using it the best way that you think you can convey your messages and to advertise your business. but also finally getting your customers to highlight your importance. There are various websites, Trust Trade, Check a Trade, Trustpilot, getting your customers, your clients to give you positive reviews or just to review your services, so you build up that credibility. And so that when people do Google, the best comms expert, whatever it be, that you're high up or your rating is quite, valued and respected, could give you that added advantage. And it's also a nice thing as well to know that your customers think of you as well. So it's not, nothing comes of it. If anything, it's just nice for your mental health to have someone says something nice about you anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice to read something nice about you, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mark, I think you touched on the think tech in your previous slides. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add at that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, on the think tech, I just say keep it simple. See what other companies like you are using. Complexity is the enemy for the small business. So find some tech that's working. And the one I might add on is, as we've all kind of touched on, you don't have to kind of go it alone. Always make sure you're speaking to someone, bouncing ideas off them, whether that might be a mentor, a kind of an advisor, a friend, but you don't have to, take all this on your shoulders alone. So networks, friends, staff, employees are great to speak with, but yeah, find someone who will give you that bit of sounding board for your next steps.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you all so much for all those really insightful ideas and thoughts. Just a reminder, we have a Q&A session coming up in a minute, so please do get your Q&As either into the Q&A section at the top here or at the bottom down there. And if you just move on to the next slide, I just wanted to remind everybody about Tide. If you are not a member, we would love to have you. We would like to become one of the now over 200,000 customers in the UK, so you can start saving your time and money with your banking. If you keep an eye out over the next couple of days, probably early next week, we'll send you an email with a link to join. All you need to do is click on the link in the email, download the really easy to use app, complete your application. As mentioned, it should take no longer than 10 minutes. It won't cost you any money, and so you can try us out risk-free. So you can go ahead and look at those parts of the app there on the screen in front of you. Give us a go, try us out, let us know what you think. We really like to have some feedback from the customers on new parts for the app which we can include and make the banking much easier for you. A bit more about Tide events as well. In the chat room, I'm going to put a link to our Tide events page and also a link to where you can see all of our previous webinars, so you can listen and watch again to those. This webinar will be on those pages in the next couple of days, so if you want to watch again, you will be able to, and we'll send you a link along with the email that I mentioned previously. Great, so I think we now can move on to the Q&A section. We don't have many questions in yet. This either means that everybody's has all the answers that they need from the session, which I think would be, which is wonderful. One question which has come in from John Mathew, which isn't necessarily to do with the session, but if it's a question you want answering, John, we can, is do you, I guess you mean Tide, handle multi-currency feature, or you have this soon? John, we do offer international currency accounts, which are available on application. So you need to check the website for more info. I will put the link for the FAQ into the chat room now, so you can check that out, and it's done on application. So yeah, please do follow the link which I'll put into there, and you are able to apply then. Are there any questions out there? We currently don't have any questions for the panel at the moment. I'll just give it another minute or two, or another second, to see if there are any questions come in. Was there anything else the panelists wanted to discuss or cover on the subject? I think we've had a really good discussion on the matter, but I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to talk about.
I'll give a quick plug for
Great, Mark. Yeah, go ahead, please do. Plugs are allowed, that's fine.
Rebuild website. So it's a series of resources that are free for small business owners to use to help them sort of get through the next couple of months, whether it's around financial advice, management, technology. What are the kind of 6 key things you need to do? Very practical. Be the business, rebuild, Google it.
Okay, I think there's a request from John for the contact details for you, Alex, which I'll share with him post-event. I'm sure that'll be really useful for him. But I think we shall leave it there for now. I was having any questions, so I think we've covered everything we possibly could in the session. So I'll take this opportunity to thank Mark and
and I think there's one that's come in from Adam about financial support I've just seen for the government for small businesses.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to answer that very, very quickly. I don't know if
yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, if you want to go ahead, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So the question being, does anyone anticipate new financial support from the government for small businesses? I mean, the government announced a big package for self-employed, for furloughed staff, but in other areas around, grants and stuff like that. So it was, multi-billion pounds. I don't envisage there being something on that scale. Who knows? In the case of a second wave, but hopefully that should never come. But I'm inclined to think it would be much more targeted, maybe sector focused or smaller scale, if they are going to give extra support for small businesses. But in terms of the self-employed on this call, we are well aware of the fact that a certain element of self-employed got that income support, but many who were directors, new self-employed, missed out, and it's those areas that we still continue to press government on extra support by government. So it doesn't stop the lobbying, but an all-encompassing one is unlikely, I think.
I'm just going to add on to that actually, because like in the budget, it had that there was 8.9 million that was given out for grant funding, but there's actually like a 4.8 million that's still remaining. So I'm sure at some point they're going to have to utilise that and give that to businesses. So you don't know if there's like a second wave, essentially, you don't know what's around the corner and what decisions are going to be made. And they're making changes all the time. And even with things like the VAT deferments and the tax deferments and, around all those things like that, potentially there could be something available, but none of us have a crystal ball. We just have to wait for those decisions to be made by and just hope for the best that they are going to start bringing in more support for those SMEs. But I'm definitely going to be pushing it, and I do feed that my stuff back to my accountancy body, and we work with the government along those things. So anything that comes through that I see, especially from my clients, I feed it back.
Okay, thank you very much, both. Apologies, Adam, I didn't see that question. It popped up a bit late for me. One is actually coming from Kelly for you, Alex. It says, I'm a co-founder with a consulting startup for small businesses. I plan on managing our bookkeeping, but I'm looking for an accountant. I'm currently using Excel for our very basic books. Do you recommend waiting until I can afford an accountant, probably another 2-3 months, so they can help structure our Xero account and set up from the beginning, or just start into Xero now and keep everything there from the start?
I'm always going to recommend doing it from the start, because essentially you need to know where you are now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, happy to have that conversation, Kelly, and get you up and running. And, we're actually doing a lot of stuff around this now to help people get up and running for, actually free of charge. So, so that they've got like the Xeros, and they've got like the receipt banks, and they've got their free cash flow forecasting tool for the next 2 to 3 months. So to process. So I'm always going to say just to get it up and running as soon as possible, so you can essentially make those all important decisions around the future of your business.
Great, that's really useful. Okay, I think that's then it for the questions. There's been a couple of other requests for contact details for the panel, which I shall share after the event. And I will again thank Mark, Mathew and Alex for their time today. It's been a fantastic panel. It's been really interesting. We've had some really great questions, so thank you for the attendees, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys at a future webinar. Please look at, again, the events page for details for that, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you all very much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.